Hello everyone, so in this set of slides I just want to briefly go through the background and overview of the module that we're covering, which is our mobile app development one. Okay, so the way I've broken it down is as follows. I'll talk a little bit about my background, a little bit about the course purpose. We'll talk about the case study that we'll be covering throughout the semester, the course structure, and a little bit about the assessment. We'll have there'll be a whole other deck linked to the assessments on tutors itself, but I'll just kind of briefly introduce it here in this set of slides. Okay, so just to begin with, there's my background, and there's me, my name. I've been delivering mobile and web dev modules now on 3rd and 4th year and MSc programs, including online delivery and including this one now as well. Okay, so my contact details there's my email, there's my office number. For those of you using WeChat, there's my WeChat ID, so you can get me that way. Okay, so the course purpose, right, is to introduce Kotlin and Android application development through a case study and targeted practical labs on a week-by-week basis. So again, I would have went through in that first lecture there the labs themselves, and I say targeted. And I definitely recommend doing the labs because they will support quite closely the assignment that you need to do. Okay, or an assignments for that matter. Okay. One point to note, it's all in Kotlin, okay, because Kotlin now is first choice language for Android development. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Kotlin first and then move into Android, okay. So some assumptions: an intermediate level of Java or closely related language skills. So again, there's an assumption here that you've covered either in Java or JavaScript. You've covered some what would you call it, up to the level of data structures, your types, your classes, that kind of stuff. The way we'll break it down is we'll accelerate into Kotlin fundamentals we need in weeks 1 to 5. So for the first 4 to 5 weeks of the course, we will just focus exclusively on Kotlin, just get you up to speed with Kotlin. As I said there, we'll be using IntelliJ to build our Kotlin apps, and then that first assignment will be built around one Kotlin assignment that you will build yourselves. Okay, and every topic explores specific Kotlin features in parallel to Android code beyond that. So we will still be learning new kind of Kotlin features, new Kotlin concepts, but in conjunction, alongside working and building our Android applications. Okay, the case study itself we're going to call Placemark, okay, which is a Kotlin Android app to keep track of your favorite places or place marks, right, to visit. So we will follow this through from a Kotlin console app right through an Android app as well. Okay, so kind of some of the complete features which we would see both in Kotlin and in the Android app, right, where we could add a place mark with a title and a description. And in the Android app, we're going to have a photo. So we'll be bringing in images and working with the gallery in our Android app. We can display a list of all place marks to the user. So we can actually, in our Kotlin app, it might be just a simple print link to the screen. But in the Android app, we'll be using some things called adapters and kind of different types of lists to be able to display that information. Okay, we can select a particular place mark and display those details to the user. So again, console-based version might be just asking the user for an option, typing in a number, a choice. Whereas in the Android version, we could actually we could make our list clickable, and you could select an individual element, an individual place mark. We have then our edit, being able to edit a particular place mark, change it, and we're going to bring in some persistence. So we're going to store all place mark data in a JSON file. And the nice thing is we will use the same approach in the Kotlin console app as with the Android app when we are working with JSON. So you should be able to reuse a lot of the JSON implementation from your raw Kotlin app in your Android app. Okay, in terms of what the course looks like, the course structure, I would have briefly shown you. They just highlighted there for you now. We would have just shown in our first lecture there, just kind of the introduction and the overview. Here's a screenshot of everything. So look, weeks 2, 3, 4 and 5, essentially your Kotlin. It's week 6. We're going to start on Android. Okay. And then into the specifics, things called like activities, adapters, that's when we look at kind of the lists. Interfaces, this will kind of overlap a little bit with what we cover maybe in our part 3 syntax. And then there we are working with our images. Okay, so we'll actually work up to that. That's week 10. Okay, there are 2 other weeks, but we'll have to see how we're getting on with the material, whether we actually cover those officially or whether I just release the material to you. Okay, and you can use that then as you see fit. All right, to look at it in a little bit more detail, the plan would be as follows. So in week 1, we're going to work with a simple Kotlin application there, some basic operations, and then that Kotlin overview that we're going to cover. So look over here, basically the first lab is very basic, just kind of displaying a menu to the user, just options there, and even prompting back to the user, yes, you chose add, yes, you chose list, whatever it might be. Okay, so very, very basic. All right. In weeks 2 to 5, we'll try and improve on that application. We'll bring in our CRUD operations, right? And we'll look at more detail with the Kotlin syntax. So when we ask the user to, for argument's sake, add a place mark, right? Or list all place marks, we will prompt the user to say, please enter a title, please enter a description. We'll store that possibly in a list, working with data structures there behind the scenes. We'll then probably navigate through that list and iterate through that list to display all the place marks back to the user. Okay. And that's our, as I said, that's our weeks 2 to 5. Okay, so week 6, then we jump across to Android. Okay, and initially I've actually got 2 labs for that week 6. That'll be the plan when I get to it anyway. Where we have a very basic kind of like hello world application that we will build, which just has a single button that we can click on and it'll display maybe a message to the user, and then we'll have a first stab at our initial placemark application, or placemark app, Android app. That will actually be less complex. You can see they're just displaying hello world. That first lab will be less complicated than the hello world lab that we do. So the hello world lab is really about getting set up, working with some buttons, displaying things called a toast to the user. Okay, and then just kind of familiarizing yourself with the Android Studio, the IDE, and how we kind of put together some very basic Android apps. Okay, moving on, right, then in week 7 we start getting a little bit more advanced. So we will have a thing called a single activity. So we will cover all that in due course, but I suppose while we're on the subject there, an activity is essentially a screen that the user works with, right? And it's kind of like that MVC, that model view controller. So the activity would be the controller, and it's broken down between 2 major parts, a class and then a view, or the screen. Okay, so all this here would be XML, and again, there's no problem if you don't know XML. It's all ID. The Android Studio looks after this very well. It can be an advantage to know XML, but it's not a requirement. Okay, so you can see there, look, we have our first kind of app proper, where we can enter a title, enter a description, the user clicks on at placemark, and then we put it somewhere behind the scenes. So that's all we're doing there, just accept a simple title, a simple description. Okay, week 8 gets a little bit more advanced. We bring in these we take these things called adapters. Okay, these are another very common feature within and kind of element within Android development. So as well as having our add placemark where we enter the title and description, here's where we get the lists. So just if you see it there, so this is where we use adapters, is to populate these widgets, as I suppose I call them. And so this one here will be clickable, so we could eventually click on that placemark and something can happen. We can trigger an event. Likewise, this is a separate one. So this information will be getting pulled from some kind of data structure behind the scenes, and it's the adapter does all that for us. Okay, so we'll be covering that in some detail. Okay, so that's week 8. Okay, week 9, modifying a little bit more, so we can actually have an ability to edit our place marks. So we bring in we'll be looking at interfaces. So on the face of it, from the screens may not change that much, but the functionality behind the scenes will change a little bit more as well. Okay, and then hopefully the plan is in week 10 we can actually include images. so that when the user, we would be able to, as well as you can see it up here, kind of this kind of initial screen there, where we could add an image to the placemark, so that we could go off and we could open up our downloads, our gallery. We could choose select a particular photo, particular image, and then that image gets loaded into the placemark data, which in turn gets loaded in the list, so that when we display to the user, we have the title, we have the description, but we also have an image, a photo. Okay, so we're starting to get fairly complex there. Okay, weeks 11 and 12. Weeks 11, if we're still on schedule, right, we'll actually bring in maps. So we'll have a first look at maps there, where we could, as well as having an image, okay, we could actually set the location, and we will then launch a map activity within our application, and the user can then move that marker around the map to choose a particular location, and in that location, once we've set the location and we add a placemark, is associated with that particular placemark, that particular chunk of data that we're adding. Okay, and then finally, if we get there, we will have the ability to save those placemarks to disk, so that you would have come across this in kind of previous programming modules. Until it's actually persisted, the data is never saved. So that you might have added 10 placemarks, the application shuts down, you load it up again, they're all gone. That's not really that user friendly. Okay, so what we will have the ability by the end of the semester, right, is, as well as being able to add these placemarks, we will store these placemarks in a JSON file, which will be stored on the device and will exist beyond the lifetime of the application. So we can shut the application down, we can start it up again, and any placemarks that were added will also be there. Okay, so this will be tied very closely to your 2 assignments. Okay, so all the kind of the features that we're building in, that CRUD functionality, maybe working with maps, a little bit of persistence, displaying data in a list, allowing them to be edited, would be expected to be seen in the assignment as well. Okay, but just to briefly talk about the assignment, just to get you thinking about it. Okay, so this is a 100% CA module, right? We will have 2 assignments. Okay, so you can see it there. 2 assignments due week 6 and 13, end of the semester. We will have some kind of demos, right? Whether that's a Zoom meeting or whatever. Okay. What I find works well is actually you the student, recording a short video of you demoing the app, and then if I need to talk to you beyond that little video, then I will actually contact you directly. Okay. One point to note there. Sorry, just highlight for you there. Project ideas must be unique and all your original work, right? So what I'm hoping that you will do for me, and this is once you've set up on Slack and there's a channel there to submit your ideas, is that you will take your idea from a basic console app into an Android app. And I have no problem with you using an idea that you may have used in previous modules. Okay, we're using a new language, Kotlin. We're building it in a different kind of a platform, a native Android app, which you won't have, most of you won't have probably worked with before. So there's no problem taking an idea that you maybe did as a web app, maybe you did as a console app in Java or whatever, right? And porting that across into a Kotlin and then eventually an Android app. Okay. It's a first come first serve approach to project title, so that's why I'm asking you to submit them on Moodle, or sorry, on Slack, because then everyone else can see the ideas. Okay, so once it's posted up there, if I give it the thumbs up on Slack, then it's good to go. Okay, and I know this might sound very harsh, but 20% per day deduction for every day late. Okay, you know now, this is day 1 more or less, this is week 1, you know when the projects are going to be due, right? Week 6, week 13. Okay, so just kind of just be aware of that. Okay, and again, like I say, we will talk about the assignments in more detail later on. All right, some of the resources, we've kind of gone through them already, really. There's my homepage, Netlify. We have up on Moodle, which is, I've tried to just bring together the all the particular links that you need. and we've got our Slack channel as well. All right. I would also say questions are good, so ask. All right. You can get me on Slack. You can get me on email. Probably Slack is probably the easier one. Kind of quicker to hopefully to respond to you. Okay. During lab times, I will be available live with on Slack to handle any questions. Outside of those times, I will promise you I will reply to you as quick as I can, and definitely within 24 hours. Okay. So other than that, thanks for listening. And as I say, if you have any other questions, please, you can message me on Slack. If you prefer, you can get me on email. And good luck with this semester.